And the way you become the most elite version of yourself is you just start doing all those things right now, because you will be, that's the only way to become that person, right? So I'm going to start talking the way that person talks, thinking the way that person thinks, doing the things that person. But the biggest thing is I'm going to stop doing the things that person would never do. I'm not going to hang out with these people that person wouldn't hang out with. I'm not going to go do these things that person wouldn't do. I'm not going to, you can use your imagination on what all that might be, but that's like, this probably last piece might be one of the biggest deals. I mean, the belief is huge, but the most elite version of yourself is there. It's your unlived life.
Welcome to Connecting the Dots. I'm your host, Jessica Carice, and this space is a place where we talk about seemingly random topics, but in all actuality, they're connected together. And today, our guest, we have a very special guest. His name is Tyler Preston, aka Ty, the car sales guy. So Ty, welcome. I'm so excited to have you here.
Thank you for having me on. I'm excited to see where this goes.
So this is about your life story and how you got to where you are today, being known as the car sales guy and really making an impact in the industry. So let's start from the beginning of your life. What was your childhood like? Did you always have dreams of getting into the car industry, or, was it something that, was common in your family, or how did you get started? What was your childhood like?
Not at all. I think that almost everybody that I've met that sells cars, they all got in it on accident. So that's kind of how that's kind of how it happened for me. I mean, back in the day, childhood dreams. The first time I had like a dream about what career or what job I would do, I thought I was going to be a body man and fix cars and paint cars and stuff like that, because that's what my grandpa did, one of my grandpas. And that was whenever I was like, oh, that's what I want to do. I guess I was around that a lot. And other than that, my idea of what I would do was maybe, be an electrician like my dad is, or, work with my hands, do, framing or construction or inside trim like my grandpa does on my dad's side. So that was the original idea. And as a kid, so I guess childhood dreams, that was it right there. So car sales was not in that dream.
That's so interesting. Like, I think you're the first person I've come around where like their childhood dream was, something like, I don't know, like a real handyman and, real rugged type of persona. That's interesting. Yeah.
Yeah, literally whenever I was in 6th grade, I remember we lived in Irving at that time, and there's these manuals that are called Chilton manuals. And that's like, back in the day, that was the YouTube for how to fix stuff. So you would buy a Chilton manual on how to like buy your, fix your 1995 Ford Explorer or whatever it was. And he got me one that was, how to be a body man, basically, or maybe he already had it and I just took it from him or whatever. But I remember being in school and I would have that in my backpack. And that was, I don't even know if anybody ever really knew that, because, really we didn't talk about it a whole lot, I guess. So yeah, that was then, there weren't, I guess there weren't like a lot of big thinking in my head at the time. I didn't have a lot of big dreams or anything like that of what I could do.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. I mean, it's interesting though, because like, even so, I guess, wait, let me take a step back. What years are we talking about when you're talking about 6th grade?
I don't know exactly. I was born in 95, so let's see, 6th grade was maybe 06. So I guess 2006. So I mean, I was always around both of my grandpas. But we lived with this one. His name was Ronnie, and we lived with him for several years growing up, for a little bit of a stint there, moving to place. So every weekend, he'd be working on cars and I'd be there with him, or, in the evening after he got off work, he came to work at home. So he'd be working on side jobs that may or may not have been taken from his company. You never know. But so, and then my other grandpa, Papa Doug, who's been there for everybody forever. I mean, he's always, he's always got work for you. If you're down on your luck, you need to go get some money this weekend, or for the next 6 months, you go work with Papa Doug. And he used to do framing back in the day, and then he would do like inside trim, and they would do like high end cabinets, and build things in like really nice homes, pocket doors and just stuff like that in Highland Park, Dallas area. So I worked with him too. So I mean, those were just my two realities that I had. But uh, uh, I would get paid with both, but I guess I was around cars more, so that
Mhm.
was on my mind. It's really a weird dream if you really think about it. I never even, like I said, I don't even talk about it with anybody. Um, because I mean, that was just growing up, whenever, of course we'd mow and stuff like that. That's not even a huge deal, but go work with them too in the summer, and then just go to school. And then my dream later on, I don't even know if it was a dream, but my plan, I guess I was always practical maybe in what I was going to do. So I was going to go to school and try and be an engineer. And I don't even know what I would do as an engineer nowadays. But that's whenever I accidentally started selling cars, and that's it.
That's so fascinating. Because, like, I'm thinking about the time when I was in sixth grade. When I was in sixth grade, I can't even remember. I think when I was in sixth grade, I may have been interested in finance and business.
Oh,
I grew up in Baltimore, so Baltimore was like blue collar as well. But like the blue collar profession that a lot of people do was HVAC, like yeah, HVAC,
you didn't
air
want to do
conditioning.
that?
No, I don't know. Like I like using my hands, but with drawing.
Maybe with a pen in your
Not,
hand, maybe.
yeah, like with a pen. So nothing like when it comes to assembling things. Oh my god, absolutely not. Like I can't. Like I couldn't do
And
that.
now that you're talking about it too, it was actually fifth grade, because we lived in Ennis whenever I was in sixth grade. So this was fifth grade in Irving. And I only remember this because they did ask, "Hey, what do you want to do when you grow up?" And I show up with my Chilton manual. "Hey, I want to be a body man." And I'd be reading this thing. Don't even know what it said. And I mean, could you imagine learning how to fix cars from a book? I guess just like that. But we did it practically. But I don't know. There's just so much that changed really fast for us whenever I was a kid. So I'm not sure what I was thinking about that back then. There was just so much coming at us.
Yeah. So let's dive into that. Because you did share in your bio that you moved around a lot.
Yeah.
And that there was some tough times. So like what was that like and how did that affect you like on your day to day?
I mean, from me now, even back then, like I was just a kid, so you only know what you know. So it's not like it was weird. I mean, I didn't have anything to compare what we were going through to. So it was just
Hmm.
what we did. Like, hey, it's now we're gonna go. Hey, we're gonna have to move in here with grandpa and ma, and then hey, things aren't working out here. We're gonna go. We got an apartment. We're moving to. We're gonna go live in Mesquite, and well, hey, things aren't working out here. We're gonna move in with see if XYZ can help us out. So just a lot happened, I guess, around. Hmm. I don't know the years. I guess I should have really brushed up on the years, but I know that in '01 I was 6, so I was in first grade. I don't really remember much happening in first grade, second grade. I grew up; things were normal. I mean, we lived close to school, so I went to Hillside Elementary in Garland, Texas. We lived on Wallace Drive, and the home was my mom's grandparents, and she was their caregiver, I believe. I don't know if maybe my grandma may have been as well, but
Mm-hmm.
they gave her the home, or maybe they were buying it from them. I'm not really sure, but I know after they
Mm-hmm.
passed, we lived there, and my grandma lived there as well. So maybe it was her house. I know it's really complicated. We've just always been we're like a crew. We've never rolled on our own. There's always been somebody with us.
That's cool.
Um, but we lived there, and I guess childhood was cool. We'd be me and my sister. I have an older sister, younger brother, but he was born. I'm pretty sure he was born in '02. Yeah, he was born in '02. So I was already in second grade. My sister was in fourth grade at that time. But we grew up outside, riding bikes and creating ramps with plywood that shouldn't be available to children, and we'd be, putting them on a barrel or whatever and jumping those, and digging holes in the back and throwing baseballs at our wood fence and tearing it up, just normal stuff, I guess.
Yeah.
And we went to Hillside Elementary, and I guess probably around fourth and fifth grade is when things started to change a lot. My parents were, I would say, young. I mean, they were raised by their parents too, and they had a family young. So,
Mm.
like I said, I don't have like a lot of blame, and maybe I used to. Whenever you start comparing to other people, you're like, well, we didn't have that. Why didn't we have
Yeah.
that? Why was our life like this and not like that? So I don't have a lot of blame, because I mean, everybody only knows what they know, so you can't really say they were trying to maliciously, make us grow up in a certain way. But
Mm-hmm.
a lot of stuff started falling apart for our parents' relationship, just due to choices that get made,
Mm-hmm.
different outside forces, and I guess just you make bad choices, and family doesn't really fit into some of those. So my parents split. My dad, I'm pretty sure he moved to Las Vegas to go live with my uncle. My uncle's out there, and that was just where his life had taken him at that time. And
Mm-hmm.
I remember he drove this green car that had a broken windshield that was like taped together. I mean, dude, I could talk forever about our childhood, man. The cars we had were what was cheap and quick to get into.
Yeah.
I think our Caravan was probably like the best vehicle we ever had. Like it could be a work truck for my dad, and like the whole family could hop in and go play baseball and football. And that's the thing too. Like I feel like it was pretty normal for what we had.
Yeah.
I had friends, and we did play football and baseball, and things were cool until they weren't.
Mm-hmm.
And
Mm-hmm.
certain things, I guess drinking and other things happen, and it just kind of takes you as a person sometimes. Like if I have friends right now that have issues with stuff like that, it just happens so fast. You don't realize you're in it until it's too late. And that was
Yeah.
kind of the case with our family. So
Mm.
once, and I don't know all the details. We really probably never really talked about it too much. Um,
Mm-hmm.
but yeah, I don't know. I guess my dad did end up getting locked up for a little bit. It's
Mm-hmm.
just reality. He never hides from it. He's not gonna act like it didn't happen. But that was after we had already moved like 3 times, so it's not like it happened like right then. So I'm
Yeah.
trying to like line this story up for you. So let me get back on track. Around like fourth or fifth grade, was whenever electricity and water started getting shut off at the house and stuff like that. Just not it's and
Yeah.
it's just again, I don't blame at all.
Yeah.
Like we were just I couldn't say, like I said, whenever you're in that kind of thing, it just happens so fast. But my mom decided hey, we're gonna go live with grandpa. We're gonna go move to Irving, which we lived in Garland. So we moved and lived with my grandpa, but my grandpa lived with my aunt. So it was just like, now we're in this big old house. Um, which this is where I really started getting into like cars and repairing cars and stuff. So now I'm rolling with grandpa after school, and he worked. So after he would get off every Friday, we'd go to Golden Corral, and he'd buy everybody Golden Corral because that was just
Golden
his routine.
Corral.
Yeah, yeah, and that's the last time I went to Golden Corral back in the day. Whenever we were eating with him, that's the last time I ever went, and they are still around. I drive by one every day at work, but man, we'd go there every Sunday or every Friday night. I guess he got paid on Fridays, so that's whenever we would go. And Saturday mornings, we'd be up at 6 o'clock in the morning at Sonic eating a like breakfast toaster, and then after that, now it's time to do the work on the cars. So we'd go do fix fenders and paint cars and stuff like that. And that was fifth grade. So lived with him for a while, but obviously him living with his sister and her husband, and then me, my sister, my mom, my brother, my grandma, and me show up. So then we have like 3 different families in this 2-story house.
Yeah.
And my grandpa's doing body work in the garage. This is just like life that we're rolling here in Irving. And I I drove a car through the house, and I'll explain that in a second. But I guess just all these families together, it probably put a strain on my grandpa and her sister and his sister. But at the time, like, hey, it's
Mhm.
family, you got to do what you got to do. So they were, they
Mhm.
welcomed us in, and you got three kids, and my mom's handling her business and getting everything back together, and then my dad's in and out of the picture at the time. Like I said, just stuff's flowing. But then after that, my grandpa got a trailer in Bardwell, Texas, which was like an hour and a half, like south of there, maybe an hour or whatever. Create like most random place we ever found a place to live, I guess. And that's how we in sixth grade we moved to Ennis, Texas, is the school that I started going to. I went to the sixth grade center, and the stories just keep going. So, just what questions do you have right now? Because I don't even know what to tell you next.
It's like there is like like so many different pieces that I could relate to. Yeah, and then even the story where you said you drove a car through the house. Like
Yeah,
my sister drove a car through the garage.
yeah, yeah. Same.
So I'm like, it's just good to hear your story of how that even happened.
I shouldn't have even been in this position, but again, like my grandpa, he taught us to drive. Like we're 9, 10, 11 years old driving cars, and sometimes we drove on the road, but a lot in the backyard because they had like half an acre in the backyard, so we drive around back there. But he think about him though. He was born in what, like the 50s maybe or something. So kids driving was nothing to him. It was very normal, no big deal. So
Mm.
like whenever we didn't drive, it was probably weird to him. So it's like, okay, hey, you need to start driving. So I'm helping. He's working on these cars, right? He has like this Dodge Neon that's in the garage, and he's got all his tools on the. It's a 2-car garage, so all his other tools are on the right side of the garage. The Dodge Neon's on the left side of the garage. One that he's repairing, and I'm pretty sure it was for a client. I don't think he owned that one, but he asked me to back up his truck. He had the typical XLT gold extended cab 1998 F-150. I remember it so well. It was that gold color with the black stripe across the bottom, and he had that pawpaw camper shell on the back, right? So he asked me, hey, get in there and back it up. And I'm telling you, this had to have been like 5th grade. So I couldn't imagine, like, I don't even know how old you are in 5th grade. I guess I'm probably 11. So I back up this truck. I put it in reverse, and I do this to back up. Well, instead of holding the brake, I hit the gas, just like boom, and the truck just all the way, and I don't stop it. I'm freaking out, and I hit the Dodge Neon, and I push the Dodge Neon through the front of the garage into the
Oh my
hallway
god.
of the
Oh my
house,
god.
which not where it goes. So that's how it happened. And as soon as that happens, right, and this was a time where my parents were together at the time. Like I said, it was just kind of one of these back and forth. We're figuring out life. But my dad was upstairs, and as soon as that happens, I just start screaming. I get out of the truck, and I'm just screaming, "Oh my gosh!" So everybody thinks I'm hurt, but I'm freaking out because, like, I'm like, I don't even know what happened. I haven't computed anything yet. So I just get out. I just run up I'm just running, and I just go inside the house, and I run upstairs, and I go into. I think I went into my room or into one of the closets, and I'm just screaming like, "Oh my god!" Everybody's freaking out, worried about me. So everybody's outside running, looking for me. You know what I mean? They find me upstairs, and the garage gets repaired, and I got a feeling that might have been why we had to leave, because I feel like not too long after that we ended up living somewhere else. Maybe a few months
Oh
after that.
man.
But yeah, that's my story. That's the story of tearing up the house.
Oh, that's hilarious.
I
That's
feel
hilarious.
innocent, but it happens.
Well, you're a kid. You're a kid, so I
Yeah,
mean, you can't get blamed too much.
I back up so
But
much better now. I'm very careful.
that's good. That's good, especially so you don't back it up into the dealership.
No, yeah, no, and if you do, hopefully nobody saw it. I mean, no, I'm just kidding.
Yeah. But Tyler, I think like your attitude and even kudos to your mom for kind of shielding you from all of the, stuff that was going on, when you said that you don't have any grudges or you don't hold any blame or anything. Because
Yeah,
I think like for me, I went through changes during my childhood, adolescent years, And my mom would share all the details with us, like all the details, all the details. And then I'm like, I'm like in middle school, elementary school, or whatever. I'm like, and then like talk about my friends, and they're like, yeah, that's not right. That shouldn't happen,
Yeah.
So then I had
Yeah.
that comparative lens, and that
Yeah.
comparative lens is dangerous.
No, I agree. And I tell I'm like I we could there's no way we'd have enough time to even like really break everything down, and especially from my perspective of as a child, from being 6, 7 years old or 10 or however old we were through all these like probably the worst times in your family's history, so my perspective versus what reality was, I mean, I'm sure reality wasn't much better, but I would be able to explain it better. So there's plenty of details, plenty of things that I've seen and everything, but now I guess with the gray hairs in my beard, you kind of understand like what can you do, it's already so far past. But whenever I talk about not having much to compare to, this was one of those things. And even now, like, well, I mean, I do talk about it occasionally, but it was never spoken about. Nobody even knew any of this. This is something that I don't think that I've ever told anybody what I'll say right now. In fifth grade, when we were still in Garland at Hillside Academy, like that was my kindergarten through fifth grade, through the first half of fifth grade before we moved. I remember writing something because, that we'd have to turn in these papers, and Miss Vaughn was my writing teacher. And I remember writing something like I was sad because we were about to move. My parents weren't going to be together, and they were going through bankruptcy, and all this stuff was happening. I remember writing that down, and she came to me, and like multiple teachers came to me at one time, and nobody even knows about this. And they said like, "Hey, what is going on? Is everything okay? What can we help you with?" And I was just like, "No, everything's okay." And I didn't bring it up, and I don't know that they ever reached out to anybody other than me about it, but
Wow.
yeah, I remember doing that. So that's really the only time anybody ever heard that I was having an issue from me, and that was in a paper, and whenever they asked me about it, I didn't tell them anything. So
Yeah.
that's really, there was no comparison. And I mean, it to me, really, I guess the other thing, I had my family to compare to, because like we have cousins that we're close with and stuff, but they were going through just as, crazy of a
Mm.
story. And I say crazy, it's not okay, but like, it just,
Yeah.
it's just is what it is.
It is. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah. So basically, so I guess it sounds like, since you weren't in distress about any of the changes, that like your mom and your dad and all the family that you had around you, like basically gave you comfort and gave you, safe space and made you still feel like a kid, right?
Yeah, yeah. I mean, we still did stuff that was fun. I mean, we had like, again, my grandpa was pretty old school. So some of his approaches on things were kind of wild. But I mean, me and my sister would go to the creek, and we'd walk through Irving, which is a city. I mean, it's not like it's a country town, but we'd walk through Irving, and
Mhm.
be walking around with these BB guns that are like CO2 powered, and they look like actual pistols. And I couldn't imagine anybody just seeing us walk through like that, go to this thing and just like start shooting at whatever we were shooting at. So like we still did kid stuff. And I thought it was fun to work on the cars, and I thought it was fun to do, all these other things. And yeah, we just kept rolling. So nobody really turned it into like a, hey, this is a bad, awful thing. It was always presented like, hey, new opportunity, new friends, new place, let's go. So I guess that did
That's
help a lot,
really
probably
good.
creating it as a opportunity rather than, man, I hope you're gonna adjust well. So we just rolled.
Yeah. That's a skill, Tyler.
Yeah.
Seriously. That is a skill. For real. No, seriously, when you're just like kind of just rolling with whatever life, hands to you without, moping about it. Well, I don't want to say moping, but letting it get to you to the point where you get depressed. That's a
Yeah.
skill.
Yeah, that's dangerous to let stuff happen. And like I said, I know that life happens very, very fast for a lot of people, and me included, but especially now. I mean, again, back in the day, it was just like whenever you're 11, you're so, uh, you're so ignorant to what's going on, you know? So again, it was just, hey, this is what we're doing and we're rolling, you know? And I guess I
Mm-hmm.
never let that go. I never let that go. And the other thing too, I I feel like I learned quickly, but I've learned a lot of what not to do from a lot of things that I've seen, heard, and felt, you know, stuff like
Mm,
that. So I guess that's helpful as well.
that is helpful. What not to do.
You know, you learn what to
That's
do, what not to do.
really-
So I'll just take both.
yeah. Yeah, yeah, yeah. No, that's really good. That's really good. It's like I felt there was a time where I felt I had like a similar thing where I just like kind of roll through life and just, get through whatever I need to get through. But then I don't know, I got into this phase where I was just talking about what I went through a lot, and then people would provide their opinion on it, and then I would internalize it. And then I started to have like, I don't want to say I developed like a victim mentality, but it's kind of like, why is this happening to me type of thing. So that was over my head for some time. And then when I finally got out of that, like, why is this happening to me? And like, kind of taking more charge of my life. Yeah, it's like the way it's like anything could happen to me, but it wouldn't get me down. So it's really,
Was
I'm
that
really
when you were
applauding
younger?
you.
Was that like younger, or when did that happen?
College, early
Yeah,
career.
yeah.
Yeah, college, early
And that was real
career.
deal stuff too. You know, you're not. We're not
Mm-hmm.
talking about I'm being told where to go. You're like, man, I got to do my thing.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. And then like for me when I started feeling that way, I think it definitely hindered the lens of how I view life. So for example, I had the thing like, "Oh, why is everything happening to me?" So then if I was interacting with someone and there was like maybe some little thing that they may have said or did, because I had the, oh, why is this happening to me type of lens, I would misinterpret things and take
Mm,
things the wrong way,
mm.
you know,
Like
versus
when,
like not taking it personal.
yeah, yeah, and I mean, that's really a big deal for a lot of people to learn. I will teach people about stuff like that because again, it's a subconscious thing, right? Would you say your victim mentality is like a subconscious thing? Like your
Yeah.
subconscious only knows what it knows. It doesn't know
Yeah.
reality from, fiction from nonfiction. So if you're teaching it, hey, poor me, then every time it sees it, it recognizes it. Hey, that's proper, and then so you had to retrain who you were then, huh?
I did.
Yep,
I
yep.
did. Big
I know
time.
exactly what you're talking about because I've been doing the same thing, and I still work on it. I still
Yeah.
work on
Yeah.
it.
Yeah. Yeah. Exactly. So, okay. So we spoke about your childhood. We spoke about middle school. I think we touched on a little high school. You mentioned engineering for college, but I don't think we jumped too much into it.
Yeah, not a
So,
whole lot. I mean, there's still, golly, I don't even know what to say and what not to say because there's still, this is just like the first time we moved. Like, this was like the first 6 months, 10 months, 12 months from leaving Garland. So, so much happened after that. We moved to Bardwell, right? We moved to the single wide. Again, me and my sister and my brother. It was a 2 bedroom, I'm pretty sure it was a 2 bedroom. So my grandma and my grandpa were separated for years. Stuff happens in our life, and my grandma lived with us, so lived with my dad and my mom. Whenever we moved out, she came with us, obviously. So then her and my grandpa kind of get back together, you know, which is a little weird, if you think about it. So, but
yeah.
whatever, it's life, it's love. Maybe it's not love, maybe it's just survival, whatever it might have been at the time.
Yeah.
Now I know it was probably more survival, more of like, hey, I'm willing to like bend, I'll be blind to a few things, just to get through and be as comfortable as I can. I think that was probably the case now thinking about it. But they got together. So then we go to this single wide trailer that's by you probably have no idea where Bardwell, Texas is because you probably end up there on accident. But there's a lake and there's this giant bridge. And the whole time you're driving over, so I just remember hearing that sound, and then you get to the end of the bridge. There's a railroad tracks, and our trailer was like right there, and it would kind of do one of these whenever the train would pass through, you know.
Oh no.
So we got my grandpa and my grandma there. My mom was in the other room, and my brother was pretty young, so like he would, stay in there as well. So me and my sister would sleep in the living room. Um, and we were going back and forth to Ennis, so a new school. Um, I was super quiet because I just kind of learned like, man, just stay away from any issues. We don't need to do no issues. But my sister was a little different story. She'd get out there and get in the thick of it. Something wasn't happening, she'd start stirring stuff up. So she would get into some fights. And me and her would get into fights too. And my grandpa, like I said, he was old school. I remember this one time, me and her were fighting, and he got like his way to handle it. He's like, cool, you want to fight? Cool, y'all go outside and y'all will fist fight, and just until somebody is hurt, quits, or is like bleeding, y'all can come inside. And my sister was bigger than me, dude, so I would say she would handle some business. So it's just a little weird, right? It's just like one of these things. My sister was aggressive, so that was my thing about my grandpa too. He was locked up for a long time. He used to steal Corvettes and stuff, and he ended up going to prison. um so he was like institutionalized, like he was like, very, man, if everything's not exactly where I want it, like, man, there's a problem. So he was so used to that routine he had whenever he was locked up back in the day. And this is being locked up like in the 90s and 80s probably, so I'm sure it was a lot different. Not that it's great now to get locked up, but anyways, let's keep moving forward. So he loved to fight, and he would always like basically lay down like, that's how you're as an adult, as a man, as whoever, you need to be able to fight, because that was what he was around. So he like would teach my sister how to fight because she was really interested in it. I guess I wasn't too interested in it. I just wanted to, be 11. But so my sister could fight, man. She had not a lot of fear in her body. So anyway, she ended up getting kicked off the bus because her and another individual got into a fight, and may or may not have been started by my sister. I don't know. I don't have full details. But man, it was the most inconvenient kick off the bus time because our school was like far from where we were living at the time. I think it was maybe like a 15-minute drive. So it's not like we could just walk, and we'd have to walk. She would have to walk across the lake, to get to school. So somebody had to drop us off. All of my family worked like in Dallas, which was an hour drive. So my mom and my grandpa
Wow.
would have to drive. And I don't know that my grandma had a car, so it's not like she could help. So really screwed up my
Mhm.
mom's schedule. So my grandpa starts realizing immediately, this has never been told to me, but now that I'm talking about it, I'm thinking my grandma realized a lot. Oh, these kids need some different kind of discipline. So he's like, and I don't know whose idea it was, but my sister goes to this military school on the weekend to go get like retrained on how she needs to talk. So then the authority, would get in her face and start yelling at her. But my sister's mentality at this time was, you yell at me and you just increased my certainty that I am going to mistreat you. I'm going to disrespect you at the highest level. So like the more they tried to like solve it with this boot camp and drilling her, the more she became a monster, So just whatever was
I
happening,
love
right?
that
So
so
now
much.
this is my influence. I'm around my family, right? Like, so we only know what we know. My
Yeah.
sister is now around, like, we're now around these new kids that we've never been around. And it's a bigger school. Like, this is just a bigger area. We're trying to like grow up, and our grandpa is institutionalized, so he's just like we, it's just a weird dynamic, right? So just things were just influencing us at so many different levels. And my mom is just doing everything she can to go to work, make as much money as she can, and provide for us, as well as my grandpa. Again, he wasn't like the most loving person, because of his life as well. I can go into that. But we're just like, literally, time is just passing, and we're just, I wouldn't say surviving, because it's not like we were looking for our next meal, but I'm saying surviving as in like there wasn't much like uh thought out guidance of, hey, this is what you should be doing in these situations. But we're being influenced by our friends and all kinds of stuff at the time, or our friends, I guess. um so I'm not even really sure what really brought me onto this, but well, I guess, me and my sister, and we're sharing a living room, and that's where we're sleeping. So on top of that, My sister's older, so she probably sees things as a lot more problems. And she's a girl. She's, 13, 14 at this
Mm.
time, eighth grade. So I guess she's like 13, 14, so think about her. And she's just wanting to be who she is. And, like we see, oh, hey, I want to be like that person. So that's who we're around, so I guess we're just trying. So I start listening to her, talking to her friends and like the way she's acting. And so, could you imagine how like confused we both are, like we're just like, hey, so much has changed for us and all these people are like, their lives seem fine. So, and now she's in boot camp getting yelled at, but, and again, in my mom's defense, that's what she thought would help. Especially my grandpa, he went in the military. He got, we're not going to get into his military career for like a year or two that he was in before they kicked him out. But like, she's doing what she can. She's making decisions as quickly and as good as she can. And that's just where we were. So again, I'm not saying she made any bad decisions, but dang, dude, what are we supposed to do? So anyway, so this is sixth grade, going into seventh grade. We ended up moving. Where did we move? So then I think my dad or my grandpa bought a house in Wilmer or something. Like at some point we ended up in Palmer, Texas. And that's where I started going to school in seventh grade. Um, which Palmer was a huge adjustment. So Ennis, maybe, I don't know, 25,000 people are in Ennis. Palmer, there's 3,000 people in Palmer. So a huge
Wow.
difference in school district, so in Ennis,
Yeah.
there's maybe 500 people in your graduating class, 700 people in your graduating class. In Palmer, I graduated with 76 people back in 2013. So a lot
Just
smaller pace,
yes.
slower pace. Yeah. So then we ended up there after, I'm telling you, like, we just had so much life that we lived in such a small amount of time. And at the time, it was just what we were doing. But now that I look back on it, I'm like, so many experiences just like kind of started molding us, and for the better or worse, whatever they were. And same thing with my parents too. I mean, shoot, I don't even know, man. So much stuff was just crazy. Life was just crazy for
Yeah.
us. I'll just tell you that.
Yeah.
But in
Yeah.
seventh grade, we ended up living um, in how did we get to Palmer? Oh, my grandpa. We went from Bardwell to a house on Risinger Road, and this was the deciding factor. Okay, so we moved like eight, because I mean, telling you, they were driving far. My sister was having problems with everybody in Ennis, I think. so they were like, "Hey, we're gonna move." Okay, so we moved to this road called Risinger Road. It's right off 45, and there's Palmer, and then the next town over is Ferris. We were able to get picked up by Palmer or Ferris, so we got to choose which school we went to because of where that address was.
Mm-hmm.
And we chose Palmer because they didn't require uniforms, and Ferris required uniforms. So that was our only
Mm-hmm.
reason why we picked Palmer. So glad we picked Palmer, though. I mean, we grew up with some good people, bad people as well. But there's always those few people that you're like, hey, we
You
should
always need
stay
a
away from
mix,
those
right?
folks. Yeah, it's just life. But we ended up going to Palmer, and my first impression on Palmer, like right now, like back in the day, there was two stop signs that were by like the high school and the middle school. Like it's just a really small country town. That's all I'm trying to say.
Wow.
Like there's
That's
fields
super
everywhere,
small.
Yeah. But my first impression was the school zone was 30 miles per hour at the high school. So I was like, man, they don't care about their kids. I don't even know why I thought that way, but I was like, man, 30 miles an hour, they don't care. Because I'm so used to
Yeah.
like 15, 20 miles an hour school zone.
Yeah, the
But that was my first
15.
impression on Palmer.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
but yeah, I mean, Palmer, we enrolled there and we stayed there for the first semester of seventh grade. Um, After that, things started getting like really bad between my grandpa and my mom. So they started fighting like
Oh.
crazy, because they didn't have a relationship back in the day. I don't even know how we started talking to my grandpa again, because my whole life I didn't even know him until like, hey, we're about to go move in with grandpa. I'm like, who? You know what I mean? It was kind of
Oh,
like that kind of
wow.
situation. So it was just
Yeah.
this whole thing is just wild. Um, but anyway, so we moved to Mesquite, which is by Garland, which is where we're from originally, Garland. So Mesquite is up there close. And my mom got an apartment there, and it was just me, my sister, my brother, and me in that apartment with my mom. So we were able to walk to school. She was going to work, and she did the best she could with what she knew to do. We were making it,
Mm-hmm.
and then there just came a point where we couldn't make it any longer,
Mm.
and we ended up going back to live with grandpa again. Um,
Mm.
Again. were things better? Truly, maybe. I'm sure people were both, sorry on each side for whatever happened, but things weren't what they were from day one. Things had
Mm-mm.
changed. So we ended up going back
Mhm.
to Palmer, but I went to Mesquite. Oh, and that was one thing too. I was not ready for Mesquite, because again, I just became like this introvert. I wanted to stay away from any issues. Wasn't like
Mm.
outgoing. I was more of, I'll watch you. I will like I don't think I spoke to anybody in Palmer for 2 weeks, like because
Oh,
I just didn't even know
wow.
how to talk to anybody. So I would like almost wait to like know and like learn who they were before I would speak to anybody. So that was just kind of who I was.
I had that behavior too.
Really? Are we the same person right now,
Yeah.
dude?
Yeah, I don't know. Maybe it's from when you do go through like a lot of changes.
I was just
So
like
it's like
so
you just need
unsure.
to observe
I don't
your
even know who to talk to. I wanted to, I just didn't know what to say. So I was just like, well, I'll just wait.
yeah. Yeah, yeah, 'cause and like then you're still feeling people out and assessing the environment and just, I feel like you're just evaluating it and then you're like, okay, this is the person I want to talk to.
Yeah, it was really like that. And man, everybody in Palmer was so good at identifying who they were, like what their clique was. Like they would even call people, those are the populars and those are the kids that like to, read books and stuff. Like everybody was just so separated and they would like claim whatever they were labeled. And I was like, man, this is new. I've never been around this. But whenever there's 75 people in your whole grade, I guess that's just how it rolls. Um, so anyway, so I was there for, I guess the first half of the year, and then we went to Mesquite. Well, we would walk home. Well, me and my sister I was in seventh grade and she was in a freshman in the high school. So we had different schedules. So I would walk home and like these kids, I remember like walking kind of, there's like a group of us that lived in the same apartment complex. Well, this little like crew, one of these girls was like, "Hey, we're gonna have a party tonight. You should come over." And I'm like, "What?" Like seventh grade, number one, I don't go to parties. And number two, I've never even spoken to you before. So like, what are we talking about? Number three, I'm like, dude, I am definitely not ready for this interaction we have going on here. So I'm like, no, 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 I'm just gonna stay home. I don't even remember what I said to her, but I wanted like we would, instead of going around the front, like staying on the sidewalk, walking around the front to the apartment complex, we would go in the back. Like there was the fence was broken, so we'd walk through the back. Well, to avoid her, I went around the left side of the dumpster. She went around the right side. Well, I ended up having to walk past them again, and like she's like, "Oh, you trying to avoid me?" And I was like, "Oh no!" So I was like, "Dang, that was weird, man." So I just wanted to get home and just sit and just not even do nothing. You know what I mean? But I remember that interaction too. That was a little weird. But anyways, we ended up moving back with Grandpa. I think Grandpa bought a house at this point. He was finally the first person to kind of get a house again, and in a certain city and in Wilmer, Texas, which was a little further down to Palmer. But we were able to still go to Palmer schools and stuff. And now we commuted. Now we're getting closer to being able to drive and stuff like that. So,
Mhm.
um, yeah, that puts me into seventh grade again in Palmer. Um, and
So all of
I
this
guess,
was happening in the 7th grade.
yeah, I'm telling you, like fifth grade, half of the okay, so that's when we left Garland and we went to Mesquite. So into fifth grade in that summer, I guess I drove through the house at some point and we ended up going to Bardwell. Half of sixth grade I went to Ennis, and then half of sixth grade I went to Palmer, and then all that other stuff happened. So then the other half of seventh grade I went to Mesquite. No, that yeah, and then the half of seventh grade I went to Mesquite, and then we came back and finished seventh grade in Palmer. And then from there, I stayed in Palmer schools, but we kept moving houses and cities. It was just dumb, dude. Not, it was just like,
Mm.
what is going on? But
Mhm.
we just did what we did, and then so now we're up to speed at seventh grade. Where should we go from here?
Wow. Okay.
I don't even
So
know. Are we
did you
supposed to stay in the
finish middle
childhood this
school
long?
in
What are we supposed to be
Palmer?
doing right now?
I'm trying to to be quite honest, like your story is wild. Like I'm trying my best to like see how we can navigate this.
Yeah, and I'm like, man, do I share? What do I leave out? Like I don't like. I'm telling you, we don't even have time to go into everything. We might need to do like one episode per year. I don't know.
Oh my god, for real. like, I'm trying my best. I'm like, okay, where should we go? All right. So I want to know, did you finish middle school at Palmer?
Yeah, because that last time we came back, we were, man, we were just. I would blame my sister. Okay, my sister was, I don't want to move schools ever again, you know. So we started beating that I don't want to move again drum. Uh, so at that point, we finally had a few friends that we had established relationships with, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so now it was time. I think my mom was like, okay, well, I will sacrifice to keep you guys in your school as much as you can. Keep you at the school that you want to go to as much as possible. So
Mm-hmm.
that's why no matter where we lived at this point, because we ended up, God, there's just so much. We ended up moving more places, but we were able to still go to school, and maybe my grandma would drop us off and we would stay at our friend's house after school, or I would be playing,
Mm.
had football practice, and one of my best friends, and still one of my best friends to this day, Mason Delgado, like I became like really close with him because he was we were in guitar together in sixth grade, because remember I was in Palmer
Mm.
in sixth grade. So
Mm-hmm.
he invited me to Edge Fest, which was like this cool like alternative rock concert. I never got to go. He still hasn't taken me. He still needs to take me. So if he watches this, I'm still waiting for Edge Fest. Um, but once we really started kind of becoming friends around that time, and like we kind of stayed in touch after that. But so my brother would go stay with his mom, Terry. So she would pick up because she had a daughter around that same age or similar. So, anyways, he would come home and he'd go stay with them after school. I'd go to football practice. My mom would pick us up, and then we'd eventually go back to Wilmer, which was like, I guess, 20 minutes, 25 minutes away. Yeah, maybe 20 minutes. So, anyways,
Mm-hmm.
we lived in a house that was built probably in the 50s or 60s over there, and there hadn't been much maintenance on it since then. But it was our house, that's where it was our grandpa's
Yeah.
house, but that was where we lived.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah. Yeah.
yeah, there you go. Where should we go now? Because man,
Yes. There is one like a summary question I want to ask. But before I ask that question, were you able to go to the same high school all 4 years?
yeah, yeah, and again, like after that seventh grade, after that last part of seventh grade, we stayed in Palmer, but we did live in like 3 or 4 different houses before we ended up graduating
Graduating middle school or graduating high school?
high school. Yeah, so I guess we had sixth, so we had seventh, so seventh, eighth, and then the 4 years of high school. So yeah, and then in that 6 years, I think we moved like 4 more times.
Okay. 4 times is not bad for 6 years.
Yeah, I mean less than a year at each one. It was much better than like 4 times in 2 years. So compared to
Yeah.
what, I guess would be the question. And you know what? Sometimes we would move away from grandpa and back again in those years. So it's like, what the heck is happening, dude?
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Oh, we even lived in a
Okay.
camper for a little while in eighth grade. See, again, I'm telling you, like we just finished seventh grade. There's still like another like pile of what happened for the next 24 months after that. But
Yeah.
whatever.
So, since you like moved so much in your adolescent years,
Mhm.
all the way up until high school, did you move in college? Did you go to college? Did you move in
I
college?
went to college for a semester and a half. Well, I went
Okay.
to college for a semester. For no, I did a semester and a half, and then I paid one of my friends to finish out my fourth semester uh, online. Which I think he owes me my tuition because he got me a D in one of the classes because he's so lazy. This was he was like, what do you want me? Like, he asked me, I'm like, dude, I don't know. I just want to pass. He's like, so what do you expect? I'm like, dude, I need at least a C, right? C's get degrees. So I was like, I need at least a C. Well, the syllabus, think about this, like such an idiot. But anyways, Con Dog is what we call him, but he knows who he is. Um, he read the syllabus on the easiest class. I think it was even art appreciation. So who does he think he is failing art appreciation? Why would you get a C? You know what I mean? Whatever. He's going to college on his own at the same time. So maybe he was just trying to be easy. But the syllabus read A, B, C, C. Clearly that last C was supposed to be a D, right? Well, he gets me the grade on the last C, the second C, not the third C, not the CC. It was the freaking C that was supposed to be a D. I get that grade. And I'm like, dude, I paid you. He's like, I'm sorry, it was on the syllabus. I'm like, dude, whatever,
You gotta get
over
a
it.
refund.
No,
You need to get a
100%,
refund.
100%. And that was community college too, And I didn't have the money. I put that on a loan. I loaned that money for it. But I started selling cars at that time, and that's why I didn't want to go to do the school because I was so
Yeah.
busy selling cars when I was 19.
Mm-hmm,
So, anyways, yeah, I do need to get with him on that. If you
mm-hmm.
watch this,
Yes.
Connor, you owe me.
So, the summary question I have is when you finally started getting into cars and making money and I guess finding that sense of stability in your career, do you have an adverse reaction to moving and changing places? Like do you find that you like just staying put?
Oh wow, I don't know. I never thought about that till just now because the dealership that I started working for in 2014, um, I was there all the way through last year, so I was there for 9 years.
Oh,
I
wow.
had only had 3 jobs in my life. I worked at the drive-in movie theater whenever I started when I was 15, worked there for 2 years, and then just, I guess like the rest of my subconscious let the rest of my life be like the first part, like everything was good, and then it just went to hell, and I just started having problems with everybody. So I I left there and I worked at Olive Garden. So I worked at Olive Garden from 17 to 19. Everything was fine, but thank God I did. But anyways, yeah, we'll have to kind of tell you a story about how I got to selling cars. But I guess I probably so subconsciously I didn't want to change because over the 9 years, a majority of it was fine because I mean life was so much different whenever I started selling cars and making money, and I was around different kind of people, and stuff was okay. What I thought I was dangerously average is what I say, but things were all right for a long time, but I never wanted to leave. Things got really bad, but I was always so afraid of leaving. And I thought it was because of the business I built, but maybe it was because I just hated to move.
Yeah.
I don't know, but that was my
Yeah.
career. So yeah, I guess I was not too interested in moving because I do know a lot of people that jump dealership to dealership. And at my house,
Yeah.
I guess I hate moving too because my third month I made $7,000 and I was 19. I was like, oh my god, I'm gonna be rich,
You're
So
rich. What?
immediately I was like, hey, I'm getting an apartment. So I basically told my parents, hey, I'm leaving, right? Because my parents had gotten back together at this time and they had a house in Red Oak. But I was just like, hey, all right, I'm making good money. I'm moving out because I'm about to get married. So I moved out and I never left. And I stayed in that apartment. I only signed 6-month agreements with them. I would not sign the 7 and I would not sign the 12 because they only had a 7 and a 12. But for some reason, I just told the lady, like, hey, if it's not 6, I'm not signing it. And so she's like, okay, she signed me at 6. And I ended up staying there from 2015 until 2017. But I re signed leases over and over and over because I just didn't
That's
want
so
to
funny.
move.
It's
Yeah.
like
So I guess
it's
that,
like that little bit of the commitment issue with signing like a 12-month lease,
yeah.
but you stayed there for 2 years.
Yeah, I always had that, man, just in case, but that was that fear, that was that victim side of me, had to kick
Yeah.
that to the curb at some point. And then whenever we bought a house, we were there for 6 years, 7 years, and we just now moved and we're about to move again. But that's those, these are different, these are adult reasons to move now, these are not back in the day.
Yeah. So like with the upcoming move, I guess when things change for you now, is there do you feel like any type of anxiety towards it? Or are you just you're cool? Like you're good now?
Change in what way? Like, what do you mean?
Like we're about to move to another house, for example, a new neighborhood, new set of people. Like, do you have any like anxieties related to that? Or now you're just excited for the change?
No, now I'm always like so intentional about every single thing I do. So I never have that fear anymore. Sometimes like it's like super exciting, like I get, well, it's always exciting, anything is like, okay, it's everything is by design right now. Sometimes, I do have to be really reactive on some of the decisions that I make. for certain reasons, but like I think through them really fast, and I always see like what, like, okay, I'm gonna have to do this for a little while, but this is why, and this is where I'll be at the end of it, you know.
Mm-hmm.
So no, not worried about it, not scared of it. Super like inspired too, you know, like even like the house that we're in right now. We're actually, my wife and my mom and my son right now, they're all in there packing, and they were making a little noise. I texted them whenever we first got on. I was like, hey, y'all have to stay away from this room. But they're literally packing right now because we're moving all our stuff into a storage this weekend.
Oh, wow.
Um,
Oh,
yeah, like
thank you
it's like
so much
happening
for
right.
sharing and doing the podcast with me. You
Of
could have
course.
easily
Well, that's
canceled.
why I put it off. I had put it off for so long. I'm like, okay, I'm going to be doing egg. Da, 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 da. So I like put it off. I'm like, no, I just need to do it. And then I tell my wife today, I'm like, man, I really picked like a really bad, really bad weekend to do this. But I'm like, you know what? Let's do it. I'm excited.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, but anyways, everything is like inspiring and like for a reason and by design. And I know why I'm doing what I'm doing, and I know what I'm going to get out of it. So I would say no fear.
That's good. That's good. So, would you still describe yourself as introverted and you kind of wait to talk to people, or did that side of you change as well?
Um, I'm still a little introverted. I mean, you know, I'm not the one, and I'll say this about church. Like our church is awesome. I love going to church, and I've never grown up in church, but my wife has been, and like a lot of things are changing. But I'm not the one that's going around like wanting to shake everybody's hand. Like I will, and I'll like hug you, and I love you first. Like I'll trust, and I'll verify later. You know what I mean? Like that's how we do things. But I'm not like gonna go out like just start talking to people that I don't really know.
Yeah.
But I do feel like I like analyze people really fast, and I don't mean that like in a judgy way, but
Yeah.
like right away, man. If I have decided like with a stake in the ground, if you are fake or you have any fakeness in you, or you are a person that will work with people or talk with people because it is a very, it's one-sided, and because you want to use them for XYZ, those are like right away, I don't speak to those people at all. So I don't see that as being introverted. Like that's just me making a decision very
No,
fast.
that's like
um
discernment.
yeah, but I'm not super like crazy outgoing, but a lot of people think I am, and I am for work and stuff, you know, because that's just who I am. But you know, at work, and that's what I have to do. But I got that from Olive Garden. You know, I learned to start speaking to people as a server, and I think if I
Mm.
didn't do that, I wouldn't have adapted so well to selling cars.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I know you didn't get into the Olive Garden story, but
No, I
that's a
didn't.
really important point. Like you put yourself in an uncomfortable situation to, basically to survive too, though, right? To make
Yeah,
money at
yeah,
Olive Garden. And inadvertently it taught you people skills.
man, it taught me people's skills so fast. You know, yeah, super fast because I had to. You know, I had to figure it out.
Yeah.
And I learned to diffuse issues really fast too with that, and like problem solving too. Like I am like I'm a great guest to have at your table, but your service makes my food taste good or bad. And that's just like I just have like all these standards where I'm like, man, come on. I understand being in the weeds and getting behind and not being able to keep up, but whenever
Mhm.
you stand around and you're not moving and trying to take care of your guests, like uh, I'm no longer a fan of you
Yeah.
in those moments. But I started as a busser, and again, I was still that. Well, again, I was 17 years old, and I had just come from working at the drive-in movie theater. And at the drive-in, I started. You know, we kind of had one weekend where all the adults that worked there, because there was a bunch of kids, all the adults quit like on Easter weekend. So, or spring break weekend, that was what it was. So all the kids that were working there, you know, we all like assumed roles of like authority, and it just kind of stayed that way. So we kind of had people that we were running the show. We would go tell people what to do. And we had two different concession stands, and like I did some stupid stuff, whatever, just out of spite with the other concession stand. And you know, not my proudest moments as an individual, because I didn't, whenever it was time to answer for what I did, I lied and said it wasn't me, you know. So
Oh my
I always regretted that. because the owners of the drive-in, man, I mean, they, you can say whatever you want about them, but they should have at least known, and they probably knew, they probably had a hunch who it was, but I should have been, more of a truthful with myself and been more of a man, I guess, and just owned up, yeah, hey, that was me. But I
Yeah.
mean, I was young and I thought I knew what I was doing, and just so I had some arrogance and some authority, and then I came to Olive Garden as a busser, and I cleaned tables, and I don't know, everything I did, I didn't, even now, like I didn't just go be a busser and clean tables just to get by, and as soon as my shift's over, I'm done. I like wanted that restaurant to be clean. Like if I was doing something, I wanted it to be like I wanted it to do as good as I could. Whenever nobody's watching, like I made sure all of my sugars got filled up. I cleaned the seats and the table, and I wiped off all the crumbs before I put the wet towel and sanitized it. Like I did things the right way. And now whenever I'm at a restaurant and I just see somebody take their towel and it's all wet and there's still food on the table and they wipe it with the food on the
I
table, I'm
see
just
that
like,
all
what are
the
you
time.
doing, man? I started getting fired up for
Yeah.
no reason,
Yeah,
you
yeah,
know?
yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
but that's just what I was doing then, and then I became a server, and then I became a server trainer, a CT certified trainer, so I would train the new servers. And at
Oh.
Olive Garden I learned a really really good way to teach people things. So you might have ever heard about this, but at Olive Garden as a trainer, whenever you teach a busser or whenever you teach a server how to do something, they have a method that's called I teach I do, I teach you do, you teach you do.
Mm.
And that's still how I
Mhm.
roll whenever I'm teaching somebody something. So I teach you and I show you how to do it. I teach you and make you do it while I'm teaching you, basically coaching you. And then at the end, if you can teach me and do it, then I know you know how to do it. But if you don't, then you haven't
Mhm.
passed the test yet.
Mhm. Mhm.
So
Mhm.
that was kind of a good skill that I still take with me on top of the people skills and stuff like
Yeah.
that. But the craziest thing ever on how I got in the car business, and I just absolutely love this story. Oh my gosh, I don't have my wallet on me. There's this guy. Okay, so me and my wife, man, just such a you haven't even heard about my wife yet, too, man. She grew up like not great, but great as well. You know what I'm saying? Like they got that deal
Yeah.
going. But she was
Yeah.
raised by her grandparents from 18 months even till now. They're still raising her even today.
Oh,
Um,
wow.
well, they're still like her people. They're her those are her parents. You know what I'm
Yeah.
saying?
That's
Like they've always
amazing.
been
Yeah,
there
yeah,
for
yeah.
her.
Mhm.
But we were like the high school sweethearts, and like we planned our wedding and we were engaged for a year and a half and like all this stuff. So we are a year away from getting married. This is in 2014. Before I started selling cars, I was working at Olive Garden serving tables. I was having problems with my general manager at the time, who me and him are cool now, but at the time, man, I was I'm sure, I guess I was just a cocky, arrogant 17, 18-year-old, well, 19 at the time. So I was 19, and I acted like I knew what I was doing. And, if he would say something about me showing up late, I would have something to say to him. Like, I was a bad employee is what my wife says. Um, but like I was having these problems and I told my friend about like, they always like knew like that I would have, like if I was arguing with one of the managers, whatever, and they worked there too, so like they all saw it. And that was one of the things too, like if they got mistreated, I always was like, no, I didn't like whenever I would see bullying, and I still don't. Like if I see something that's wrong, like, hey, you don't treat that person like that, but you do that person, that's wrong. So like they would do, they would be involved in that, and I would always stand up for people too. So like that was another problem that
Yeah.
I would like challenge authority, I guess. And still to
Gotta
this
learn to
day,
say,
I do that. And maybe it's a bad quality, but I don't know. I will always die on that. Which is why I got fired from my dealership last year, but that's a different story too. Dang, so much. Anyways, so in October, me and my wife are preparing to get married the following year. In 2015, we were going to get married. So after we got married, the plan was we were going to move in together after we got married. So we're like,
Mhm.
hey, we're going to need furniture, right? So we go and we get a storage unit, and we're like, hey, we're going to start buying furniture over the next 10 months and be ready. We go to Rooms to Go in, like, I guess it's either September or October. I can't remember exactly when, but I'm talking to this guy and we don't have money to buy furniture. Like we were buying like free furniture. That's what we were buying and putting in a storage unit. But one day we
Hey,
were like,
I
man, let's
got
go
free
down there.
furniture too for
Hey,
starting
free
out. It's
99
all
works,
good.
free 99 works,
Yes.
especially whenever it's good stuff. It's like, man, there's not even any
Exactly.
rips
I'm
in
not
this
against
yet.
the free. I'm not against the free. So do
Yeah.
what you gotta
Yeah.
do.
So we were rocking the free, and we had a full storage, but for some reason, we just went to rooms to go. So we go see this guy, and I'm sure this is how it happened. My wife saw a couch she liked. Well, it was my fiance at the time, and she said, "Hey, we're gonna buy that one." I was like, "Hey, that's a great idea." Right. So I'm just doing what we're supposed to do. Well, we had student loans at the time, and we had credit cards, but we didn't have like bad credit card debt. We had good scores, um, because we only had so much credit history. So our scores were
Mm-hmm.
high, and really, I guess her score was high. And she was working at Little Caesars at this time, I believe. Yeah, she was working at Little Caesars. So she applies for this because he's like, "Oh, hey, do y'all want to apply for the 0%?" And we're like, "Yeah," because we don't know. I mean, we're 19 years old. We've never been like taught about credit or anything. You want to apply for this? See if you can get it 0%. You can just make $60 payments. We're like, "Yeah, that would be stupid not to." So that's how we ended up buying this furniture. Well, his name was Robert Warren, and he was an old car salesman. He sold cars back in the day. He was retired. He's like,
Mm-hmm.
he's like, "Hey, what do you do for a living?" So he's filling out our applications, and I'm like, "Hey, I work at Olive Garden, and I make $500 a week or whatever." So we're going through it, and he's like, "Oh, you're a server." So like in the car business now, I know people that are great for the car business are like servers. You work at you do work at a cell phone store. Just people that have communication skills and have to like problem solve and stuff. Like great car salespeople, right? Just salespeople in general, but like, hey,
Mm-hmm.
you fit. Um, so he's like, "Oh, you work at Olive Garden? Man, you should sell cars." And I'm like, "What?" So now, at the time, I was like, "What are you even talking about, dude? Mind your own business. I'm going to be an
Yeah.
engineer, brother. You don't even know what you're
Yeah.
talking about." And this was whenever I thought I was going to be a mechanical engineer. I was going to Navarro College in Waxahachie. But anyways, so he's saying all this, and I'm going through these problems at Olive Garden. I'm, anyways, you can ignore that little deal there. Um, but he's like, "Oh yeah, you can make $60 an hour as a car salesman." And he's like, "You're paid commission." And all I know is what I've heard. And like, we never were able to buy cars from dealerships. Like we would, show up, sit there for hours, and have to leave without getting a car. So I didn't, and then my dad always, whenever we would pull into the lot, "Oh, there's the vultures." So that's the only thing I knew about car salesmen. I didn't know anything else other than what I've
Mm-hmm.
told and what society presents it as and all this stuff. And now I got the
Mm-hmm.
first guy in my life that's ever been like, "Hey, go sell cars." Number one, I've never been told to get into sales. I don't know anything about sales, which was probably a good thing. But also he's like, "Yeah, you should go sell cars." I'm like, "Shoot, that'd be cool." But I'm good. I'm going to be an engineer. Right. So he gives me a card. He's like, "Hey, but in the time, like my mentality or my like my standard operating procedure was, oh yeah, yeah, that'd be awesome. Yeah, I'll try that. Yeah, I'll go talk to that guy." He's like, "Hey," so he wrote down this guy's name on the back of the card, and I keep the card in my wallet. I still have it every single day. This guy named Caesar that worked at Richardson Toyota. He's like, "Hey, go see him. He's a buddy of mine. Tell him I told you to come up there. He'll hire you on the spot." And I was like, I was living in Palmer or in Red Oak at the time. And this guy's telling me to go work in Richardson, like an hour away to sell cars. And I'm like, "Dude, this guy's dumb. I'm not going to drive that far. Are you kidding me?" But
Yeah.
like, think about how my life could have changed. But it ended up changing, but at a different location. So I tell my friends about this, and they're like, "Oh, okay, that's kind of crazy. Whatever." My friend Ivan, one of my best friends, still to this day as well. So I'm continuing to have these issues at Olive Garden. It gets increasingly worse. And my friend Ivan, he's on Craigslist for some reason and sees this ad from the Waxahachie Autoplex, which was the old dealership that I worked for, which I don't recommend. I don't know if I can even say that or not, but I don't recommend working or buying a car from there. Come buy from me. But anyways, but they have this $2,500 sign-on bonus, and like, if you know anything about dealerships and you hear about a sign-on bonus, like there's so many strings attached to this thing.
Something. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
But there's this $2,500 sign-on bonus, and like the opportunity says you can make from 50 grand to 200 grand or something crazy. So my friend's like, "Hey, why don't you go do this?" And it was crazy. Like, he planned it, Robert Warren, and I've never found the guy again. I've gone to rooms to go many times. I've called multiple rooms to go to try to find this guy. I can't find him. Don't have any of his personal information, because I've always wanted to thank him for saying that, because he never had to say this to me. But I said it to he said it to me, I said it to my friend, and my friend found this place on Craigslist. Anyways, that's like a decade ago, and here I am still selling cars. But um I don't do anything with the Craigslist ad. I'm like, whatever, I'm still okay. I have like a really terrible day at Olive Garden. So I'm like, you know what? I'll call him. So I called. The first number on there was David Lorenz. He was the Dodge new car Dodge dealer sales manager. I call him, and he doesn't answer. I left him a message. All right. So I'm not in sales yet. So I don't know. Hey, you call him twice. I don't know to text him. I don't know to do all this stuff. So I just call him, leave a message, whatever.
Mm-hmm.
Don't hear nothing. A day goes by. My friend's like, hey, did you hear back? I'm like, no. I'm like, man, I'll call him tomorrow. I hit him with the tomorrow call, So I call him again tomorrow. He doesn't answer. So I'm like, okay, whatever. I'm like, you know what? Screw them. Right? Screw them. Whatever. I don't even care. I'm fine. I'm going to be
Yeah.
an
Yeah.
engineer. Well,
Yeah.
again, another awful day. And I'm like, you know what? So I wake up on a Saturday morning. And this is in December, Saturday morning in 2020. No, 2014. This is a long time ago. So Saturday morning, I wake up and I go, you know what? I don't want to go to work. I don't want to go to Olive Garden. I was like, I'm going to call one more time. There's a second phone number listed, Johnny Cuellar. Man, just story there too. But honestly, he's still one of my people, man. We were like good friends, just like super, super tight, close. He was my boy. He's still my boy. Honestly, there's just a little rough patch that we've gone through recently. But man, I'll say he's still one of my best friends because I can tell him whatever, and I feel like we can pick up right where our relationship was. We just haven't really talked a ton lately, but we text here and there. But
Mm-hmm.
anyways, so Johnny Cuellar, I call this number. I'm like, you know what? I'll call him one more time. And after this, I was like, I was just gonna be done. I call him, he answers on a Saturday randomly. I'm like, what, dude? What dealership manager answers their cell phone on a Saturday, anyways? But he answers, and I'm like, hey, I don't even remember what I said, but whatever I said, he's like, yeah, can you come up here? And I'm like, yeah, I can come up there. He's like, right now. And I was like, oh my God, it's like 10 o'clock in the morning. I'm still in bed. I'm 19 years old. I'm
Yeah.
still in bed. I'm like, I don't even know why I called you. So I don't have any clothes that are remotely close to being in an interview, much less being in a sales interview. So I'm like, yes, sir, I'll come up there. I'll be in there. He's like, okay, come up here at like whatever time he told me. So I drive from where we live like 20 minutes to the store, which is like right where the dealership is. So I go to the store, I go to Belk,
Mm.
I buy some dress clothes that I've never had in my life. So I looked like awful goofy. I just buy like these, like a turquoise button up shirt that had like a nice
Yeah.
tie in the same box with it. And I buy some pants that didn't fit me and some shoes that didn't fit me. And I come back and I iron them, and I don't even know how to iron, and I don't know how to tie a tie. And I put my tie clip down close to my belly button. It's like way down there, but I go up there for the interview, and I get upped by a guy. And whenever you pull onto a dealership, if you like, it's called taking an up or upping somebody. Like the up is the opportunity that just pulled in. So I get upped by this
Mm.
dude named Eric Williams. He's still one of my people to this day. But dreadlocks, I mean, he's just cool as a fan. He comes out, can I help you? And I'm like, yeah, I'm here to see Johnny for an interview or whatever. He just sends me inside. So I end up going inside, and the way dealerships interview you, if they don't know you or you don't look like a killer, and a killer isn't like a good salesperson, they will make you sit there for like an hour before they come talk to you. So I'm just like sitting there forever, just like not even just nothing. I'm just like all in my own zone, like, hey, I'm not questioning nothing, I'm still whatever.
Yeah.
And eventually he comes out and talks to me, and an interview at the dealership is kind of like they just tell you everything that's cool about selling cars and how you could make a lot of money. Hey, you can make 100 grand here. You don't have to have a degree. All this stuff. You don't even have to graduate high school. You can make $100,000 here. You just have to talk to people. Can you talk to people? Yep. Can you move cars? Yep. Okay. So your interview is, hey, can you pass a drug test? And it's like, if you can't, we can talk about it. But no, yeah, we're good. Okay, cool. So that's just how that works. Do you have a driver's license? Because we definitely need that. We can't get around that. Yeah, I got a driver's license. Okay, cool. All right. Well, we'll start your paperwork, fill out an application. Well, they hired like 5 of us at the same time. I didn't. That's just how they would hire back in the day. They'd hire batches, and whoever
Mm-hmm.
made it, and then they'd hire again.
Mm-hmm.
But that is how I started selling cars. Was from a random man at Rooms to Go, used to sell cars back in the day, and my one of my best friends that is addicted to looking at jobs online. Now it's Indeed that he scrolls through. He doesn't scroll through Craigslist anymore. He just scrolls through Indeed, and he'll apply to jobs and never take any of them because he likes the job he has. I don't know what his problem is, but
Oh,
that's
he
still to
probably has
this
all
day.
the hacks on how to get a job. Oh my gosh,
Dude,
that's
he's
so
the
funny.
plug. Yeah, he's the plug. You want to find out how to get a job and how to get a raise? He can help you.
Yeah, yeah. So so how did you go from just selling cars to becoming Ty, the car sales guy?
Well, that's That's a good question too, and hopefully I can answer it in a timely manner. But um,
Yeah, no, we got to
I
wrap up.
don't, I don't really know. Well, I do. Like, I just started selling cars, and again, my third month, I made a lot of money. I mean, I was a young cat, and oh, there was this one dude, Scott Smith, still one of my boys to this day. But Scott Smith was a Marine veteran. You know, he's like, I guess he's like
Mm-hmm.
maybe 30 at this time or something, in
Mm-hmm.
his 30s, and he's just like him and Danny Bledsoe. Danny Bledsoe was just a killer, you know, just amazing. Like they were the top guys at the dealership. So you see them selling cars, making a lot of money. You know, they're making $8,000-$10,000 a month, and you're just like, oh my gosh, how do you do that? They make $15,000 in a month. You know, whatever's happening, they're selling. They team sell, so they would both sell together, combine their sales, and they would sell 40 cars together, 50 cars together. You know, just like
Wow.
crazy. So you're like, hey, that's who we're chasing, right? And then I'm like this young kid around all these adults, you know, that are making real money, and they're just like wanting me to stay out of their way. And I'm talking to real people that come in to buy cars, and I don't even know what I'm doing. You know, I just know, hey, talk to them, get the keys, ask them if they want to buy it, and then hopefully hold on to them long enough for the manager, John Kopic, to come in and close the deal for you. You know, John Kovic's still good people to this day. But anyways, so I start making money. My first day at the dealership was December 20th. I was going to Olive Garden that night. It was like my last weekend. I only went up there to shadow somebody. I was like, hey, can I just come up there and just like follow somebody around? They were like, yeah. Well, I go up there. It's a Saturday. It's no, and Saturday in sales, you don't want to be around. You don't definitely don't want to be around a new guy that doesn't even work there yet. So I kind of show up, and I was like Eric was, he always upped me every time I showed up to the dealership for my interviews and to do paperwork and stuff. So as soon as I get there, I'm like, hey, Eric, you know, I start on Monday or whatever day I was going to be starting. Like, do you mind if I follow you around? He's like, yeah, no problem. Well, I never saw him again after that. So he like disappeared. So now I'm like all on my own. I don't know anybody. Again, I'm introverted. So there's me. I don't want to talk to anybody. The only person I've talked to so far is Eric, because he always says, how can I help you? And he never remembers me. And then the managers. Those are the only two people I've talked to. And you're not going to go sit with the managers all day.
Yeah.
So I just start like walking around. Well, I'm walking around, like watching everybody, like looking at all these cars that I've never even seen in my life, you know, because I'm so caught up in where do I, you know, like where are we sleeping? You know what I mean? Whatever. Not that serious,
Yeah.
but you know what I'm saying? But like now
Mhm.
I'm around all these things, and I'm just like, so like, man, this is crazy. I'm about to quit this job that I've been at for 2 years and do something that's like, you know, persona of sales is like, oh, you're doing something dangerous, but you know, whatever. I'm going to be an engineer, so it doesn't matter. I just wanted to make it 90 days so I could get that sign on bonus. That was my plan, to go back to Olive Garden.
Mhm.
I tried to put in a leave of absence to go work this other job, but my general manager at Olive Garden was the one I always had problems with. And he was like, put in your 2 weeks, dude. We're not playing this game. I was like, okay. So anyways, that's what happened. That was my plan. This is my ultimate plan, was go back to Olive Garden, finish my degree, and be an engineer. I just was trying to come get that $2,500. I was like, dude, I could use that for, you know, for the
Yeah.
wedding. So anyways,
Yeah,
so that
exactly.
day I ended up talking to this guy, talked to me. I can't even say I talked to him, but this guy pulled up, and there's this truck. It's a Dodge Ram black diesel. And I don't even know what a diesel is. I've never even, you know, been around one in my life. And he's like, hey, I want to look at that truck. And I'm like, okay. So all I did was I took the information to John Kopic, and I was like, hey, I got this guy out here that wants to look at this truck. And everybody's busy. Like, this is 2014. People are just all in the lot. All the salespeople are busy. He's like, okay. He's like, well, I'll get the keys for you. Go on a test drive. And whenever you're done, bring him inside. I'm like, okay. So we go on this test drive, and the guy's like, okay, like, he likes it. And I'm like, okay. And he's like, all right, what do I need to do to buy it? And I was like, well, just come inside, because that's what they said. And literally, like, this is called a laydown. Whenever you're new into sales and car sales, you get the laydown every time up front, because that's just how the car guides work, right? So I get this guy. It's like, yeah, hey, where do I go to buy it? I'm like, hey, come inside. So I come inside, and I go to John, and I'm like, hey, where do I do now? And he's like, oh, so he gets this guy named Jeremy Gayring that's selling. He's been selling there for a few months or whatever, and he had access to CRM. So he's like, hey, you know, Jeremy will help you. So Jeremy sat him down and put him in the system, and we got his credit application, and great credit. And John Kopic gives Jeremy the numbers, because Jeremy's got the 3 months of experience it takes to know how to sell cars. And
Ooh.
the guy just signs the paperwork, and me and Jeremy, they give me half the credit, which is super unheard of as well. The new guy getting half of a sale, and my half of the commission was like $450. So they had to go to HR and say, hey, we have to change his start date to the 20th because I ended up selling a car my first, whenever I wasn't supposed to even start yet.
Yeah.
So right away, I get that addiction of, dude, I just made in an hour what I made in a week
Mm.
of serving tables, and like just like being so like
It's like,
hard, like hustling to do that.
yeah,
And so I was like, oh
yeah,
wow, this is going to be life changing.
yeah.
So my very, again, like, so then I work this week and I'm just like, now I'm just like, okay, just talk to as many people because that's what he told me to do. So now I'm just like going after it because I have no sense of fear. Like I'm just doing what I'm told. Hey, go talk to the people and they'll buy cars. So I sold a few more cars, and I, had like a $1,200 check for my first check that I got the next week or whatever.
That's not
No,
bad.
it was really
Yeah.
awesome. So I was like super excited. So I was like, oh, so
Yeah.
there's a guy, another salesperson. His name is Dominique, and I haven't talked to him in a long time. So, but at the time we're both super young. He'd only been there like a month or so, and the only thing he had on me was he knew how to use the CRM. I didn't know how to use
Uh,
the CRM, but I was talking to a lot of people. So I think he saw an opportunity. Hey, let me partner. And remember, Danny and Scott, they were the two killers.
ah,
So we're like, hey, the way to be successful, you got to team up with somebody. So we teamed up with each other. I sold 6 cars. He sold 3. We sold 9 together, and I got paid on half. So I was like, well, this wasn't good.
wow.
Um, so then that second month was February, and I was like, and they said, hey, if you start the month married, you got to finish the month married. So halfway through the month, when I was like, hey, I don't want to do this anymore, they're like, nope, you got to finish out that way for whatever reason. So that second month, February,
Hmm.
it's the shortest month of the year. Obviously, there's only 28 days. In Texas, there's about a week where your life gets shut down because of ice out here. People don't know how to drive. So a lot of salespeople didn't show up to work for like some of that week. So I'm there and I'm talking to everybody. I ended up selling 16 and a half cars, and I made like $7,500, and I got that check in March.
Wow.
So in my second full month in the business, I made 7,500 bucks. And I'm like, I'm going to be rich. And I pay my friend to do my college, and I'm like, hey dude, I'm good. You do that. I'm going to do this. And then that very next month I get an apartment, and I think life's going to be great. And then the ups and downs of sales come in because I'm still who I am. And I didn't keep doing the things it took to get where I was at. So then we
Yeah.
have
Yeah.
10 years worth of career after that. So anyways, I just wanted to tell you how I got into the car business to start with, and how did I become the car guy? Well, Scott Smith, and that's why I brought up Scott in the first place. He had this big old speech where he was talking to me and one or two other new people. And he was like, if I can tell you anything, it's learn this. And he's like this big dude, like
Uh,
huge, huge man. Like his hands are just giant. He's got this big old beard even now. He's just a big man, freaking machine gunner from the Marines. He's like, learn this, this would change your life. If I was your age, he hit me with the, if I was your age speech, like blah, blah, blah. So I was like, okay, no problem. That's what I'm going to do. So I just started, selling cars, and I made 46 my first year. And my second year, so that was all of 2015, and like 19 years old, made 46,000. And I was like, what? That was cool. You know?
that's amazing.
Yeah. So then I went a few months, then I went through, the next year, 2016, I am like stealing tickets for like the Scarborough Fair or something with one of my other friends I sold with. Like he was on the floor, me and Juan. Juan's an OG as well. But we go to this other building because there's like 4 buildings up there. So we go to this other building to Bobby Malatia's spot, who's, man, one of the best people you ever meet. He's a manager. He's done a lot of stuff, but he was the marketing manager at the time or something. No, this was in 2015. This was what he did. So I went to his office up there because he eventually became the GM of Nissan. So this was in 2015. We went up there to steal Screams tickets. That is a Halloween park here in our area. And while I was in there, so we're stealing these tickets. Like we snuck in. This is like the lights are off kind of thing. Well, there's a book on his deal back here, and it says how to make $100,000 a year selling cars. And I was like, ooh, I like that. I didn't read books. I never read books. The last book I read taught me how to be a body man in 5th grade. So like I didn't read books. So I steal that book, and I remember at the end of the year, I'm reading it while I'm supposed to be working. I've never read a book before, but I read this book at work, and it takes me 3 days to read it. And Cliff Pollock, he's an old car dog. He had been in the car business for 35 years, and he's like, I like seeing you reading that book. That's a really good thing. And I was like, thank you. But I read this book by Joe Verde, who's an OG old school car sales trainer, and says how to make $100,000 a year selling cars. And I still have the book. You know, I don't have that exact book. I just have got other copies over the years because I really believe in that book, because it really changed it. It taught me like, hey, this isn't just something you stay in and eventually you make more money. This is if you actually are intentional about showing up, if you learn sales, if you learn communication, if you learn to like bring in your own clients, if you start learning to follow up with people, like it taught me all the things that you don't get taught.
Yeah.
You don't get taught any of this stuff. So it's like, hey, you can do this by design. This is not a, hey, if you stay in the same place for 10 years, you'll start selling more cars, and each year you'll sell. It's like, you can do it right now if you want to. So I got serious about it. So that was something I was like, oh, wow, I can do this. So that next year I didn't have a lot of money, but I bought this ebook called by Joe Verde. It was called How to Sell a Car Today. So that was like a 500-page exactly how to do it, like step by step.
Oh, wow.
And the hardback book was $55. The ebook was $29. Well, I didn't have the 55, so I bought the ebook for $29. And I printed out 500 pages at the dealership and put it in a binder. And then that's how I had this stupid book. I'm just like, I'm such an idiot now that I think about it. But I read this book, and that year I do 76,000, and that's whenever I was 20, and and then the next year I made 100,000, and then just from there it's just kind of been, it was that for a long time, you know. And I was just kind of like, that's where I say I'm dangerously average. So from my third year through, I don't know, like the seventh or whatever year, it was always 100, you know. But I was just kind of stuck there, you know. Then I stopped learning because I thought, hey, because I guess mentally that book, and it's not the book's fault, but mentally, how to make $100,000 a year. So mentally, that was my cap.
Yeah.
And I would just rise to that, and that was what I did, you know. So that book and those seeing that, stealing that book, whatever, you know, it was a free book too. It's not like he paid for it, but I didn't know that at the time, but I ended up finding it out. You know, but we did steal the tickets, but those were free as well. But anyways, we don't have to get into all that, okay? So I read that book, and just from there, I'm like, oh, I can do better. And then especially like I really, I still do now, I guess, but, and I'm not saying I guess I do, because I just learn about myself, right? But I really liked whenever somebody would give me like, hey, good job. Hey, that's fantastic. Hey, you're doing great. Like I loved that recognition, and I would like feed off of that. So like I always wanted to do a good job. And if I didn't, like I feel like I was letting people down. So like that's where I always stayed at that. Hey, I sell a lot of cars. I sell 15, 18, 20, you know, whatever cars, 25 cars. And then, you know, I just always kind of stayed up there. And that was how I became Ty the Car Guy back in 2020. And there you go. I just kind of stuck with it.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
That's amazing. And by the way, $76,000 when you're 20, 21 years old. I probably didn't start making that much money until I was 25. And that was after a master's degree and everything. So
right.
That's amazing.
You know, like I did it by accident, you know, and by accident, I mean, I should have never bought furniture from Rooms to Go because it was on credit. So, you know, that's what happened there. And then, you know, plenty of other, you know, over 10 years, you learn so much, and so much life happens, and just things around you. And even now, like, not like everything's amazing, but I do have people that I do, you know, coach for car sales. I got somebody in New York right now, and she just texted me before I got on here. I'll have 14 out by Monday. Like she's just like really growing and looking for these levels and like helping other people. And I just love that because somebody helped me, and I just am like obsessed with doing that for other people. So like that's like a huge passion for me, you know, like that guy never had to tell me to sell cars. You know, I never had, like I read that book, but I never had to get that information that was a free book that was sent out by the sales trainer. And of course he's sending out books to get you to buy his training or whatever, which is fine. But I never had to get the help of from Scott to say, hey, learn this, so like just so many things along the way. And I'm just like, I will give 20 times before I ever even ask for anything in return. And that's just how I'm built now. But sometimes it's a bad thing. Sometimes I'll give to people that I should never give to, but it's all right. I'll die on that
Okay.
now.
It's
Yeah,
okay.
that's right.
God will reward you for that. So
That's
it's all
right.
good. And who knows, you may have inadvertently changed their life. So you
Yeah,
never
I
know
always
how
hope
your
so.
kindness can help. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
That's always intention.
Yeah. So if you had to give your top three pieces of advice for, I guess, people just maybe they're going through a tough time and, they want to change their lives. Knowing what you know today, what would be your top three pieces of advice?
Dang. Okay. Um, so there's I absolutely hate when, like, the thing that really kills me inside is if somebody passes away. And I absolutely hate when it's sometimes self-induced, right? Like I do, man, it just hurts me so bad because I'm like, man, they were so, like, all these demons were just like so on them. But if they would have just stopped and stepped back, like, you can get anything, you can get through it. Like, the time is going to go by. So no matter how bad you think something is for you right now, my advice is to, it's gonna be okay. Okay, like, if everything is so bad you just need to walk away from it, you can walk away, you can step back, you can go reach out to somebody, because there is somebody that that loves you unconditionally. So if things are so bad that you feel like that's even an option or an idea, immediately just stop. Nothing is that serious, because maybe it solves the problem right now, but what the ripple effect that happens below that, right? And I don't even want to say it out loud because I just hate to even talk about it, but um the ripple effect behind you for what you leave behind, anybody would rather have you than whatever the problem was fixed. Okay, they'd rather have you. So think about it. Like, if that's where you're at right now, go think about, okay, so what if you just stopped, whatever your issues were, what if you just stepped away from it and you didn't, like, do the ultimate, I'm gone, right? Let's fix it. Anything can go by. Like, man, there's so many bad things that I've been through that have happened in to me because of me, in my family. Like, it's happened, but now the time is gone and now there's a new story being written. So if that's even a moment, and I've always wanted to, like, speak on this, but if that's even a moment or a thought, just stop. Think about, in 6 months from now, this is going to be such a small problem. In 12 months from now, this is going to be such a small problem. A decade from now, you'll never even think about this again. You might think, hey, I thought about doing something I shouldn't have done that day, but I'm so glad I did it. That's the thought you'll have. So that's one thing. If that, like that, I go there all the time, like, not like me mentally, but whenever I think about people that happens, because I've had people take their lives, and I just, oh man, I'm always, what could I have done? And oh man, it just hurts. So if you're ever in those moments, it's nothing is ever worth that, because there's so much life on the other side and you can change so much. You can just say, I'm going to be okay. Okay. So that's one. Okay. Just nothing is ever worth that. Okay. Another piece of advice I would have for somebody that wants to change their life. Okay. So let's just say that's not even the case. Somebody wants to change their life. The first thing that happened, like, my income, I told you, I stayed at 100 from like 2017, 18, 19, 20, and yeah, so like those years I was at the same income level, but I had a bigger client base, I got better, but still, and I knew, like, hey, I wanted to go to bigger levels, but I was just stuck, because those bigger levels, I would always say, I know I could make 15,000 a month, or 150 or $200,000 a year, but, and then I would have all these reasons why I couldn't, right? And I owned those reasons. And again, your subconscious only knows what it knows. So anytime it was time to, like, level up and have those bigger things, my subconscious would go off, hey, you can't, because they would have that list of, I know I could, but, and then that list of reasons why I couldn't would show up, right? So the moment that my income changed and that I started selling more cars and being more consistent, providing better service to people, was because I decided, hey, I can have that right now. So my belief. So that's what I always tell people now. If you don't believe you can do something or that things could change, nothing is going to change, because you will, whether, as a man thinketh, whether you're right or wrong, you're always going to be right, right? Like if you think you can, then you can. If you think you can't, then you're right. Like that's what Henry Ford said too. So that's the like my second piece of advice. Okay. If you don't think you can achieve whatever you want to achieve, you're absolutely right. You're not going to be able to. But like get rid of those limiting beliefs, those low limiting beliefs that keep you the same. Get rid of those. Okay. Cause they're not there to help you. And you will get so much more from like, hey, I know I can. And then I demand it from myself too. Like it's not just a fact of I know I can. It's a hey, I know I can and I'm going to, right? So that's my other thing there. What's the third piece of advice for somebody that wants to change their life right now? Um, and I think about it all the time. What could I do to change my life right now? So one thing I learned from Grant Cardone is there's usually something or somebody that has their foot on the brake, right? So the people that you're around have a huge, part in who you are, right? So one of my, like, I guess the other thing too, how could you change your life right now? Well, there's two people. Okay. Here, I was going one direction, but I'm going to go another for a second. There's two people. There's who you are right now. And then there's your most elite version, right? There's who you are right now. And then there's your pro. So like, there's this book called, The War of Art by Stephen Pressfield, I believe. But he talks about there's your amateur life and your pro life, right? And then, so let's go back to the first thing. Your most elite version of yourself. How do they talk? Ryan Stewman talks about it a lot. How do they talk? How do they think? Where do they live? What do they look like? Right? Like, what do they do for a living? How much money do they make? What do they do every day? What do they eat? There's that, your most elite version of yourself. And then there's who you are today. Well, when do you become this person? What day on the calendar? If we looked at my huge calendar I have right here, it's called Big Ass Calendar by Jesse Itzler. But if we looked at that, what day on that calendar do I become the most elite version? It's not a random day. It's the day I decide to start doing those things. So think about who you could be, what you could be around, and all those thoughts you would have. And the way you become the most elite version of yourself is you just start doing all those things right now because you will be. That's the only way to become that person, right? So I'm going to start talking the way that person talks, thinking the way that person thinks, doing the things that person. But the biggest thing is I'm going to stop doing the things that person would never do. I'm not going to hang out with these people that person wouldn't hang out with. I'm not going to go do these things that person wouldn't do. I'm not going to, you can use your imagination on what all that might be, but that's like this probably last piece might be one of the biggest deals. I mean, the belief is huge, but the most elite version of yourself is there. It's your unlived life. And I just had a friend that I was talking about this today at lunch with. I was like, man, there's who you are now and there's who you could be, your potential. So a lot of times we compare ourselves down. Well, I'm doing better compared to last year. I'm doing better compared to my friends. I'm doing better compared to XYZ. Well, what if we compared ourselves to our potential, right? I'm doing what, okay, compared to what? Well, what about compared to what you could do? So now that is where I'm always motivated based on what I could do. I don't care what everybody else is doing. I don't care if everybody's struggling. I don't care if everybody's doing well. If I could just like do double, triple, and just smash everything compared to what I'm doing now, then why aren't I? So Andy Elliott, a long time ago, back in 2020, I got on a phone call with him when I was a manager at the time before I went back to sales, which was awesome. But he said, "Do you have the ability to make more money than you're making now?" And I said, "Yes." He said, "Then why aren't you?" And every answer that came to my head was me. It wasn't anything else. So there you go. Those are my three things of advice. I don't know if you wanted that much information, but there you go.
I take everything you give. That was amazing.
Awesome.
That was amazing. And so, my favorite question is, where can people find you?
Uh-oh. You can find me on Facebook. Tyler Preston is my name. I have a business page that's Ty the Car Guy. You'll probably see that logo somewhere. So my I guess my handle is at Ty the Car Guy TX. So TX for Texas. So at Ty the Car Guy TX. That's on Instagram, on TikTok as well. And then I do have a YouTube channel and Facebook. So yeah, there you go. I'm on LinkedIn as well. You can connect with me there.
Wonderful. Oh, Tyler, this was so much fun. Thank you so much for coming on the show. Like, I had a
I
blast. It
love
was
talking
so
about
great.
myself.
Thank
So this was
you.
perfect. No, yeah. Thank you for having me on too. I was like, man, huge shout out to Joe Ingram for referring me to even come on here. Like really thoughtful. I do think that's super thoughtful of him to think of me. And man, he's a huge mentor as well. Like you talk to him, and he's got so I've been watching his podcast with you, and he just got so much information to dump out, and his dots were crazy. I didn't know a lot of the stuff about him, so I learned a lot about him. But Joe Ingram out in California, the BDC genius, he's a killer. If you were looking for to bring somebody into your dealership and really kind of kick things up a notch, like definitely reach out to Joe Ingram. But super grateful for him connecting us. There you go. Boom.
Yes, I love Joe so much. He's amazing. This is a wonderful. All right. Thank you so much, Tyler.